You are watching a new episode of the Guru Perspective every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Welcome to a new episode of the Guru Perspective. I'm your host, Hugh Lee, the guru himself, and I wanted to explain some things that happened over the weekend. It was the good, bad, and the ugly for me. But like I said before, it's any given Saturday in college, and definitely was any given Sunday in the NFL this week. I know a lot of my predictions and my picks were wrong, but it's fine. I get to live on to see another day. At the end of the day, they pack their bags and they go to their mansions and they go back to their normal lives while I'm sitting here trying to figure out what I'm going to do to continue to entertain you guys in this sports world today. I thank you all and I appreciate all the love and support and everybody who chime in, the people who link in the comments and my TikTok, my Instagram, my Facebook, etc. fans out there, and my family and my loved ones who give me support no matter what. I appreciate you guys. I just want to continue to give you some good, consistent content. That's my job right now. And I want to start off and I want to talk about some things that happened in NCAA. It was a really crazy week to me. It was some few things that happened that I didn't expect, but I definitely didn't expect one of the things, and I will be talking about it. It was a few upsets. Some of the teams were ranked, but I still feel like it was an upset in the rankings too of two ranked teams. I want to start off with the Michigan and Purdue game. I thought that was going to be a blowout, and I believe the point spread was crazy, like 22 points or what have you, but it was a closer game than comfort. It stayed close too. No disrespect in this game. I definitely thought that we were going to blow them out in a convincing win, especially at home. Bryce Underwood, he's still a rookie, just like I said, he's playing collegiate ball this year on a college level, but he was in high school last season. So I'm expecting the growing pains this year. And I believe as he get comfortable with the college game, he will excel. And I'm definitely figuring in about a year or two that he's going to be one of the special kids to watch when it comes to college football. But I'm just glad that we have him right now because we had a scuffle in LSU was trying to get him as well. I think that possibly would have helped with Brian Kelly's job, but we're not going to get into all that stuff right now. I'm going to just talk about what he did in the game. Bryce Underwood had 145 yards through the air, and he didn't have a touchdown. He had a pick on the day. He was 13 of 22. I believe once he gets more comfortable passing to his receivers and, to be able to get implemented into the team after this year, he really will step up and play well in the college game. I don't think he played bad, but he's learning as he go right now. And I'm just glad that they ended up getting a win. That final score was 21-16. The person who really kept the team on their back was the kid Jordan Marshall. He put the team on his back, and I was surprised because Justin Hayes got hurt, and I was nervous. I said that might be a problem, but this kid scored all the points that we had in Michigan. He had 185 yards on the ground, 25 carries, and 3 touchdowns. That was phenomenal. I believe now with Justin Hayes being out, when he do return, they're going to have to definitely split the carry because he was definitely explosive and he showed endurance in this game. Wasn't really much going on the Purdue end either. I didn't think that they played as well, but we played just a little better to win. Ryan Browning, he didn't really do much. He had 133 yards, 19 of 24 with a score, but it wasn't a really explosive game, but like I said, Michigan ended up pulling out the win. It was 21-16. I'm still nervous because I know when we got to play the Ohio State Buckeyes, I'm really looking at that and I'm saying, what's going to happen here? Because I know that's a really polished team, and we're still really going through some of the penalties and the things that we had to face from the Coach Harbaugh era. But yeah, I'm hoping they can at least make it a game because that's definitely going to get scary. I thought last year that was going to be a problem, and Michigan held their own, which I was really shocked. I definitely didn't think we had a chance, but you never know. If Ohio State show up and we show up, I would like to see how that game plan goes. I want to move on and I want to talk about Georgia Tech. This was the shocker to me because Georgia Tech was playing really good. They were ranked number 8. And when they played North Carolina State, I wasn't even really looking at this one to be a close contest. And I still believe that North Carolina State was under 500. But when you look at these games too, you can never just say never to a team, especially when they're in the same divisions. And I seen that game and it was just really surprising to me because it was like Georgia Tech never really got their footing in this game. They got punched in their mouth early. And when they tried to make a comeback, they definitely made it close, but it was too little too late. Still got to give credit where credit is due to as well. You got to give respect on the other side of the ball. And that was a surprising thing to me because CJ Bailey played pretty decent in that game. He had 340 yards and 2 scores in the game. But another person who really stepped up was Jaden Scott. I mean, come on, you guys. This guy had 196 yards on 24 carries and he had a touchdown. And the receiver got a touchdown as well, Teddy Hoffman. He had 74 yards on 3 receptions and a score. And I feel bad too because I feel like Hayes King did everything to keep them in this game. He had 408 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a pick on the day, but at the same time, Hayes King had 103 yards and he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. It was just too little too late to try to make that surge when they did. Got to give credit where credit is due because I definitely didn't think number 8 Georgia Tech, and they've been playing so good, and they was on that high after beating some really good competition in college. And I was high on them last season because when they played Georgia, which is a rivalry game, they did everything they could to make it a contest. And I thought at one point Georgia Tech was going to pull out the game, but then they just came up a little too short. It was too many mistakes that was being made. And then that's when I said that's a team people are going to have to look out for, especially after they beat Florida State. And then now, Florida State is kind of what Florida State was last season. They just had a good start to the year, but I still looked at this game and I feel like Georgia Tech, if they can, just run this table and don't lose anymore, they're still possibly in that playoff hunt. But that final score was 48-36, and that was one of the biggest shockers to me when it came to the college football. Oklahoma versus Tennessee. That was not that bad of a matchup. I thought that it was going to be good, and it definitely didn't disappoint. What I seen in this game was two teams still trying to stay relevant. Joey Aguilar looked pretty good in the game, 393 yards, 3 touchdowns, but the 2 picks were very costly in this game. That last pick cost them the game. John Mateer, I still feel like he's still banged up, with the injury to his finger. And he's still out there trying to play. I mean, I respect his toughness, but I believe if he would have sat out for a while, he would definitely have a better chance of coming back to the league and being a little healthier. Because right now, we're missing how well he played. And when John Mateer was on his top echelon level. But right now, I don't really think that he's really 100%. They won the game, so I got to give credit where credit is due. But I don't know, man. I don't think the playoffs is going to be there for him this year. I think it's too little too late, especially with that injury going on with him. He had 159 yards through the air, and he had an interception. But the thing is, Xavier Robinson looked pretty good on the ground. He had 16 carries, 115 yards, and a touchdown. And I just believe it was a really good back and forth game, good defensive play as well. Tennessee doesn't really have a good defense. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like this game ended up being with the Oklahoma University ended up pulling this game out. Number 18 beat 14. Didn't really think that that was like too much of a upset there, but I just felt like it was a close game and it was a really good contested game. The only difference was I was shocked because I thought Tennessee would do a little better at home. Another game I would like to talk about, which surprised the heck out of me too, was the Cincinnati and the Utah game. I thought that that was going to be a game that be a little bit more close contested, but it wasn't. So yeah, the surprising part of this game was I just didn't think that this was going to be a game to where it'd be a blowout. I thought that it was going to be like maybe a touchdown lead or what have you, but I definitely picked the Utes in this one. And I still feel like right now, Uncle Rico don't quarterback there anymore. But this kid, man, I had to keep my eye on him and how well he's been playing. Devin Dampier or Divine Dampier. Yeah, man, I think that he's been playing really good football as of late. 213 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. And at the same time, too, I like to give credit where credit is due. Wayshawn Parker, he had 17 carries on 104 rushes yards, and he had a touchdown. So 104 yards on 17 carries and the score is pretty good on a collegiate level. But I just think they control the tempo of the game. What surprised me too was the wide receiver playing Ryan Davis. I didn't think that he was going to explode like he did. 132 yards on 8 receptions in the score. But at the same time, it was some monster numbers too on the other side from Cincinnati's wide receiver, Cyrus Allen. He had 2 receptions for 133 yards in the score. Yeah, you heard me correctly. On 2 receptions, this man had 133 yards and he had a touchdown. So, yeah, I was actually impressed on that. Brendan Sorsby, didn't play too bad, didn't play well enough to win. Definitely in this blowout effort, too. He had 221 yards, a touchdown, and he had a pick on the day. But if you told me that the Utes, yeah, they were at home, but was going to beat Cincinnati 45-14, and Cincinnati was the number 17 ranked versus number 24 ranked, I would have said, nah, I think that that's not going to be the case. A lot of people had Cincinnati winning this game outright, but then I said, no, I think the use of what they've been showing me with Devon Dampier will be a better team, especially at home. But the 45-14, I was still a little shocked on that. I give credit where credit is due. This team is better than what I thought. You know, they're 7-2, and you never know in the playoffs right now. It's just some of those losses might hurt them. One of the losses, though, to their advantage was Texas Tech. So I give credit on that, but I want to see where they can go. Can they make it into the playoffs? Maybe. Another good game, surprisingly, too, I thought was going to be a blowout, but that's what I'm saying, too. When you play an SEC or ACC, Big Ten, wherever you play, it seems like most times when you have these games and then you're playing your division rivals, it always hits different. And it's funny, too, because I'm going to talk about that in the NFL later on. Georgia looked really good in this game, but the crazy part was when I saw this game, I said, "Okay, man, you might have a little problems in Georgia because Florida came and they came to play. I mean, yeah, they were at home, so you know they was going to have that edge. But DJ Lagway's been playing definitely better than what he was before at the beginning of the year. He's not throwing a lot of interceptions, and he's not trying to lose a game on his arm anymore. He had like a mediocre at best game, 166 yards, but he was 15 of 24. So that's way more consistent when he has been in the past. And he had a touchdown on the day. Gunnar Stockton had 223 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a pick as well. The crazy part about it is the running backs didn't really do as much, but then they still got in the end zone. Jaden Bogg, he had 72 yards on 15 carries and a touchdown. And Chauncey Bowens, man, who's been really explosive this year. He had 9 carries, 70 yards, and he had a touchdown on the day. The wide receiver play was actually pretty good as well. Eugene Wilson, the third, watch out for this kid. He had 9 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown. And on the other end, too, with Georgia, um, Dakara Branch had 112 yards on 10 receptions. He didn't get in the end zone, but then his play was definitely hell of effective right now with that team. And like I said, it was a squeaky win because what I thought was going to be a walk-off with Florida going in and making the score, Georgia got the ball back and scored at the end of the game before, the time expired or anything like that happened. They just went in and they just strolled down the field and they scored a touchdown, which ended up sealing the deal 24-20. It was a really good game, and I should have known better than that. I don't know if I had it as a close game or a matchup. I definitely had Georgia, but at one point it looked like Florida was going to pull off that upset. I want to go ahead and I want to talk about this game right here. I don't really think that this was an upset, but number 9 Vandy versus number 20 Texas. I thought that Vandy coming in here had the advantage because they were one of them gung ho teams. They surprised a lot of teams last season. They really didn't sneak up on a lot of teams this year. But at the same time, they shocked a lot of teams too with how well they played in the organization and what they did to build this team from the ground up. This game came out at first with Texas punching them in the mouth. Texas went down on the first score through a haymaker touchdown. Then it was a fumble recovery that they got that was close to the red zone. They scored again. I said, this is a problem. This doesn't look good at all. Before you looked up, it was like 17-0. And what happened was, it was the tale of two tapes. That second half, I mean, I still feel like Archie Manning and Texas played well. But then you seen Diego Pava and his team. And I seen them step up and show the perseverance of a team who is in Vandy, who is not going back down from anyone. They're not going to be the team that you could just walk all over and be the punching bag of the SEC. They came out and they came out ruined that second half. If I had to say who played the best between the two, Arch Manning had the advantage in the first half, but all in all, Diego Pavia had the better game. I mean, this guy had 365 yards and three touchdowns. On the other hand, Archie Manning had a good game and he didn't have no interceptions and he had a pretty clean game as well. He had 320 yards and he had three touchdowns. Diego Pava actually had 43 yards and he had a touchdown as well on the ground. But see, the thing is, they need a better run game too to get a little pressure off of him because that's the one thing that I've seen, even though it was a high scoring game. But whenever Diego Pava got the ball, they were tackling him and they were basically having spies and people looking for him. I believe that they had a little bit more of a run game to get the pressure off of him so he wouldn't have to throw the ball out too fast. And sometimes he was throwing screens and he was trying to throw the ball to the sideline. He was getting rushed. And you could tell that first half. But then in the second half, he made his adjustments. He made hell of adjustments, may I add. And this is the reason why the game ended up being so close. Quintrevion Wisner, he had 75 yards and he had a touchdown on the ground as well. And Ryan Wingo, the wide receiver, had two receptions, 89 yards in the score. But the person of the game was Eli Stores. He had seven receptions on 146 yards and he had a touchdown as well. The crazy part about this game was, regardless of the fact, Vandy still had a chance to pull this game out. I like what they did on the onside kick. They just couldn't convert. I believe if they would have got that onside kick, they would have stunned Texas after having this game in the bag for sure. Most of this game, definitely the first half. That final score was 34-31, and it was a hell of a contest between two SEC rivals. I want to move on, and this is one thing that I have to say now when maybe people might not like what I'm about to say. I believe Miami is on the cusp of being back, but they're not 100% back. Don't sleep on SMU, though. SMU was one of the teams who was ranked this year, and I believe me and a lot of other people were saying we didn't really see why they were ranked, and we didn't think that they should be ranked. Number 10, Miami came into this game looking like, okay, all they got to do is handle business. And with some of the upsets, they might have stayed put or they might have went up in the rankings. But surprising enough, a lot of people felt like that they gave up in the end in the overtime. I didn't think that. I believe they were gassed because I didn't think that they were in for a fight with SMU, or they thought because they were the U that SMU was going to just bow down, and that wasn't the case at all. This was a good game for all the people who watched. What I looked at was the quarterback play from SMU. I seen how well he played last year, but I didn't think that he would be able to repeat that. And Jennings had a really good game. I was really surprised because I didn't think that he was going to be on top of his game. But Carson Beck, I've been having problems with Carson Beck too as well. When he plays well, he plays well. But sometimes when he don't play well and he gets rattled or, he have a problem with turning over the ball, I don't think that the Miami team play as well. Jennings on the other end had 365 yards and a touchdown. I think he threw the ball a little too much with 44 pass attempts. But still, I feel like they played a good enough game to pull this game out. You would think with the passing yards that he was passing for, that this game would be a little bit more of a high score, but that didn't materialize. TJ Harden had a really solid game, as far as blocking and, taking care of the quarterback. He had a touchdown, but only had 27 yards. So Miami did do good on keeping the ground game in check. And what I liked about this game too, when you seen this game, you really thought Miami was going to pull it out, definitely making the game go into overtime. But a lot of people unfortunately feel like talking heads, not me, and I'm not going to be disrespectful because I'm not even in that level of player. I don't have that talent to even open my mouth and disrespect or say anything harsh to these kids. But they felt like they gave up and they was gassed in that overtime. And that's the reason why they lost that game. That final score was 26-20. And SMU went on and they shocked number 10, Miami. The last game to me, which I was surprised about as well, didn't think that was going to happen the way it did. But I mean, like I said, any given Saturday, this game was one for the ages for me, was the West Virginia game. West Virginia versus number 22 Houston. I wanted to know what happened in this game because it was a blowout. And when I say it was a bad blowout victory, it was a bad blowout victory. It wasn't to the point where they beat them like by multiple touchdowns, but then they lost that game regardless to the fact. I don't want to really get too much into details because I just want to look at the time and I just want to move on and I want to talk about some of the things happened in the pros. But that final score was 45-35. And in that contest, too, West Virginia is definitely not ranked. And for them to go on and beat number 22 Houston, I didn't think that that was going to happen. But in the college world today, you get a lot of things that you're not going to believe you saw. And the same thing with the NFL, because I feel like if any given Saturday or Sunday was a factor, it played a huge factor in this weekend games. And I'm definitely about to get off into that once I start to talk about the NFL. But just was really surprised with how things went in week 10 in college. I still feel like some of the games where they don't have a lot of competition, it upsets me. But still, some of the games when I feel like they had at least competition, those are the games when they play the best. I want to get into this actual play too with Connor Wigman with the University of Houston. He actually played well, 309 yards, 4 touchdowns, but the 2 interceptions was on there, and that was kind of what cost them, and I feel like was very costly in that game. But Scotty Fox Jr. did just enough, 157 yards, and he had a touchdown. The running back played well too. Dory Hubbard, he had 108 yards on 29 carries and a score. Houston, the guy to look out for was Amir Thomas, the wide receiver. He had 10 receptions, 99 yards, and he had 3 scores. But it still wasn't enough for West Virginia to come out and get the upset bid. I mean, it was by 10 points, but still, when you have an unranked team and not looking for something, and when you see them come and they rise to the occasion, the other problem was they were on the road and they got that victory against a home team in Houston. But I'm starting to learn now, no matter who you are or where you play, that home field don't mean nothing. Let's get into it, you guys. Let me just, peel these wounds off me, and just, go ahead and just get it over with right now. I want to start off and I want to talk about the game that happened on Thursday night. Thursday night this week was definitely a stinker. Well, last week, I would like to say. I didn't like the game all in all. But for the people who watched, and definitely if you're a Baltimore Raven fan, you were happy. I thought that Lamar Jackson was going to come back the week before, but then he ended up coming back now, and then that cost them too. The Baltimore Ravens, if I'm not mistaken, they got fined $100,000 for that. They thought that okay, he'll be ready, and he didn't come back to play at that time. So I think they felt like it was mismanaged or whatever happened. I don't really know. I believe they were saying that they wanted them to focus on the scouting team and think that he was playing, and then he didn't play because I think that that game, Tyler Huntley had a really solid game and ended up pulling off the victory for the Ravens. But at the same time, regardless of the fact, Lamar Jackson came back Thursday and he looked pretty good. Yeah, you could tell he was gassed. He made a few errant throws, but 204 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, come on now. I can't imagine what's going to happen when he plays again coming up this week. Derrick Henry had 19 carries, 119 yards too as well. Tua Tagovailoa had 261 yards, and he had a pick on the day. He's really been looking rough right now. It's a few things that happened too, some shakeups with trades. Today is the NFL trade deadline too as well for all the people who don't know. Hopefully, I can see more trades. A lot of things has been still right now. A few good trades has been made already from the trade deadline. I will definitely get more in depth on that. You can go to the Sports Guru to you and check me out on Facebook if you want to see any of the late breaking news or anything was going around the NFL before 4 o'clock deadline. Okay. I want to get that out the way for you guys. But didn't really feel like besides, Tua with the passing, nobody else did anything. Devon Achane had 67 yards on 14 carries. Jalen Waddle had 6 receptions with 82 yards, but I'm starting to feel like besides the Jalen Phillips trade, yes, I said it, they traded one of the defensive ends from the Miami Dolphins to the Philadelphia Eagles, and I believe that they ended up getting a 6th-round draft pick. And now the Eagles have Jaden Williams, and I believe they have a 6th-round draft pick. But at the same time, the Eagles gave up a 3rd-round draft pick too as well for Jaden Phillips, if I'm not mistaken, too. Miami said that we will take the load of or the front end of his contract, and you could get him off our books, later on. And the Eagles are one of them teams that's always making those splashes too, as well. What I've seen was the Eagles ended up getting some really good pickups. They got Michael Carter, a really good cornerback from the Jets. And then they turned around and got Jalen Phillips. One of the things that I was surprised with, that it was more like a mid-season trade rather than the trade deadline, was when I looked up and Adam Scheffler said that, Jair Alexander ended up going, Jair Alexander, correction, went to the Eagles as well. I feel like the Ravens looked at their records, and at the time, I think they were like 3-2-5. They're 3-5 now. They don't feel like they're going anywhere. Even with Jair Alexander, they hasn't really did anything or made any impact on this year. It definitely didn't help that Lamar Jackson was out for like 4 or 5 weeks of the year too. So yeah, they wanted to move on, and I think that's something off of their books too as well. But come on, you guys, the Eagles always feel like if they need to do something or make moves, they make moves. I still feel like Brandon Graham came out of retirement to come back to try to help the Eagles pass rush. But getting Jalen Phillips, if he can stay healthy, he's really going to step their game up. I like that transition in the gear. And then it was just like, hey, man, we get a 3rd-rounder and, you guys will, take the load and we get a good pass rusher. I was surprised that when they gave up the 3rd round, it wasn't bad to get a Jalen Phillips. But when you go ahead and you still paying his contract in Miami, I feel like that was a steal. And then for them to actually get, Michael Carter too as a cornerback with Philadelphia, where they had problems. Quinyon Mitchell's been injured, Cooper DeJean's been banged up, and then you tell me you get a guy like a Jair Alexander. I wasn't too excited about that, but that's just how it does when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's why they're going to continue to be Super Bowl contention. I be wanting my team to make splashes like that, but I know they're not going to do that. They're not going to risk things when they feel like, okay, we have people in the house that we want to pay. But you definitely like to see those splashes. And I will get into that a little bit more too when I talk about that contest. But moving on, I want to talk about what happened too, because it was some good games that I didn't think was going to go down to the wire, actually went down to the wire. Michael Penix played really well. I didn't think he was going to play that game. He had 221 yards and 3 touchdowns. Drake May has been looking really sharp as of late. That second year development is definitely reminded me of Josh Allen, even more or less because he got Stephon Diggs, and that's when Josh Allen really started to emerge. And they're good, they're big, strong, stout dudes who can throw the ball, they can sling it with the best of them, and they got good wheels. So yeah, it's a lot of comparison between those two. The run game wasn't doing too much. Bijan Robinson, man, had 46 yards, but the Patriots ain't letting nobody in this whole season run for 100 yards. So that lets you know that defense has been pretty well up front. I do not too much care about what's going on with Travion Henderson. I had him on my team, my fantasy team, and he didn't do so well, and he's still continuing to do that. 55 yards on 14 carries. The person who surprised me in this game was Demario Douglas. His guys that have been on the team, like Kevon Booty and Demario Douglas, is really starting to excel with the additions of Stephon Diggs. He had 100 yards on 4 receptions and a touchdown. Drake London had 118 yards on 9 carries, and he had 3 touchdowns as well. The game was back and forth, but New England ended up holding on by a thread, and that final score was 24-23, and New England moves on to be 7-2, while the Atlanta Falcons is 3-5. All right, now let me just go ahead and talk about this game now. I don't know how long I'm going to discuss on it. Try to make it brief as I possibly can. The Detroit Lions versus the Minnesota Vikings. This game, I feel like if we played our game, that we could have came in and we could have executed and won this game. It was a very long bye week, too long for my comfort, but then I can't make that as an excuse. I just get tired of some of the fans in Detroit, the new fair weather fans in Detroit, and what they say. People were saying fire John Morton for what? When you look up and they were saying, man, it's like a 3rd and long, and you're trying to throw a screen pass to Jahmyr Gibbs. What gives? You need to throw the ball down the field. But what you guys didn't notice was the interior was vulnerable in that game. And I think too, from a smart coach and a hell of a defensive coordinator, better coach to me, but then we'll save that for another day. Brian Flores said he came in with that. We're just going to keep going in and we're going to keep rushing their interior. We know they're vulnerable there, and we're going to do something. We're going to continue to do it until they break. And they just came at us at will. They came and they had the blitz. I think that we wasn't as prepared as we was last season, but at the same time, we don't have Frank Ragnow there no more, and Kevin Zeitler and some of the guys that we had in our interior before. That lets you know we need those guys, and a lot of teams are going to use that as their blueprint if they could to try to expose the Detroit Lions. We definitely came off sluggish. The last time we played was October the 20th, you guys. I want to add to. And we played on November the 2nd. I still don't want to use that as an excuse. But what I was really pissed off about, too, when we were down in the game, you still have people dancing and doing all the celebrations. Come on, you guys. I feel like you need to be more professional and give more to basis on this game. We still made it a contest in the first half and ended up being 17-14 going into the second half. But I feel like the execution was poor. I can't even look at Jared Goff and say it was all his fault when he wasn't getting protection. He threw 2 touchdowns and he looked really sharp when he was getting protection. But when he wasn't getting that protection and getting rushed up front, he basically made some bad plays in this game. I can't say he played poorly, but it wasn't the best game for him. I still feel like he outplayed, JJ McCarthy, but it still wasn't enough to handle their defense. If I feel like anything, I don't really too much care when Dan Campbell throw himself under the bus or when he say, I didn't have them prepared after the bye. I don't really think so. It's starting to show more than likely, some weeks you have good weeks when you play and then you have bad weeks. But it's been like a Jekyll and Hyde with this Detroit Lions team. And with people who are saying, man, we need a pass rush, me being one of them, I feel like we should have went after Jalen Phillips or one of those guys to help shore up the pass rush with, Ian Hutchinson. I said with Aiden Hutchinson on one end and us getting like a Jaden Phillips or somebody who I feel like that you have to respect, that can make it a little easier on us when we play in games. But no, a lot of the problems wasn't even on defense. Terry Arnold had one of the best games of his professional career too. I was really shocked to see how well he played. He was the main bright spot on defense, but the defense didn't really give up this game. They had a lot of short yardage, and they basically had it to where they had a short field as well in this game. But you got to give credit where credit is due, because, like I said, they had a plan. Evan O'Donnell and Brian Flores. The pass rush was too much for us to handle, and at the same time, the offense did just enough to win. I really seen this game, and I said, "Yeah, man, we have problems on the O line still, and maybe they might be able to patch it up. Maybe they won't." But I still feel like right now, if we need to look for anything in the trade deadline, if we can get like just insurance at a cornerback, but I would rather us focus on some of the guys who are like Evan Neal and people who are out there who might be able to shore up the offensive line. Jared Goff had 284 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the other end, JJ McCarthy, he's starting to feel himself a little too much. And then, I hope that definitely backfired. He had 143 yards and 2 touchdowns and a pick on the day. That was one of the picks Tyrion Arnold had in the game. Aaron Jones had 78 yards on 9 carries, and unfortunately, he was out of that game. David Montgomery had 40 yards, 11 carries, and a touchdown. This is why I thought we was going to play well at when Sam Laporta just came out and just, caught the ball all over the place on that first drive. He had 97 yards, 6 receptions, and a touchdown. But after that, it wasn't really much going. I still feel like one of the players who shined in this game, who's really been having problems against us, is Justin Jefferson. Definitely got to respect and know that he's still on the Minnesota Vikings. I felt like it was a really good game on their end. Us, we came out a little sluggish, but then we didn't execute as well. I still feel like in this game we could have won by the 8 points that they gave us at home. But it doesn't matter if you're at home when you don't execute well. And that's why I say any given Sunday, this was definitely one of those games. I feel like we need to go back to the drawing board. The one good advantage right now is the fact that, and it's unfortunate to say this, Jake Daniels going to be out because that nasty injury where he dislocated his elbow in a non-throwing arm. And then Marcus Lattimore is out. I believe it was an ACL injury. And then you have Luke McCaffrey's going to be out with a bad injury. So those two guys are out for the season. Jane Daniels is out, and the sky's looking a little brighter for the Detroit Lions. But at the same time, I was a little disappointed because not the fact that they lost, because I feel like we could have caught some ground if we would have won this game. I still feel like, too, they ended up giving Jameson, was the ball, which was, pretty good, but they just looked sluggish. They didn't come out with the same intensity we usually have. And after almost 2 weeks being off, yeah, I understand why. But like I said, you cannot deny what the Minnesota Vikings did. I always thought their defense was scary. And it definitely helped that they had J.J. McCarthy and he wasn't trying to do more than he could handle in this game. That final score was 27-24. And for all the Detroit Lion fans now saying throw John Morton in the trash and this and that, they're going to talk stuff about Kelvin Shepard and all this other stuff, man. Come on now, stop being unrealistic. I think the realistic views right now is we're going to lose some games. We're not going to be 15-2 anymore. We have some guys who are banged up and hopefully be back by next week. We still got to see what's going on with DJ Reed. Taylor Decker's still a little banged up. It's guys that will be back, but I still feel like, for Christ's sake, if we could get some guys in here or some depth on the offensive line before the trade deadline, I don't really care too much about the defense right now, because the defense wasn't the problem. The offense was, and Jahmyr Gibbs and the pass protection, man, I don't think that's really his game, So, yeah, it's been some issues, but I think the most issues we have right now is not on defense. So for all the people out there, including myself, who wanted that pass rush, man, come on, let's be realistic. That O-line still is not to the point to where it's going to be consistent and on a consistent basis. Like I said, that's blueprints for other teams to just rush the interior and continue to blitz and have a pass rush to get Jared Goff off his game. And if you could do that, you could probably get an upset victory like that as well. I want to move on. I want to go into the Chargers and the Tennessee game. That was a little better than expected as well. This was a really crazy Sunday. I didn't feel like Cam Ward did enough with 145 yards, 12 of 21 in passing. But then again, Justin Hubbard did just enough to win this game with 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had a pick on the day too as well. And Herbert even had 57 yards carrying and a touchdown. They didn't really have that much of a running game. Hamilton's still out, and Hamilton's out, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe most of their running backs are banged up right now, and it's sad because that's a team who usually do well in the run game, and Joe Out is out for the season now too, so it's going to be some growing pains for that team. It wasn't really a good game, but it was an okay game. But I still feel like right now you got to give Tennessee credit for hanging in there. And you don't have a Najee Harris right now, neither over there with the Chargers. So yeah, right now they're still like on the cusp of being number one team in that division. They're a game behind the Denver Broncos, and it's surprising too. And I will talk about another one of those games where I didn't really feel like it was an upset, but just a little bit more of a shocker to me than anything. This was a good game right here, you guys. Wasn't really too much defense whatsoever, but the Chicago Bears versus the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Cincinnati Bengals was pissed because I thought they had to run off victory at first, but then it ended up being Chicago ended up winning at the last second on a walk off victory. I still like the fact that Ben Johnson is starting to put over there too that these guys can win and these guys are starting to believe. I mean, hell, they're tied in the division right now with us. They're 5-3 right now after our loss. Caleb Williams had 280 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. The running back, you guys don't got him on your fantasy right now, or if you haven't heard of him, Kyle Monongia, Monongia. I said his name right, you guys. Amen. Kyle Monongia looked really sharp in the game. He had 176 yards on 26 carries. He was definitely a beast. Another guy that you got to look out for is Colston Loveland. Cole Kmet hasn't been around lately, but this guy has definitely been showing up. 6 receptions, 118 yards, 2 scores. I feel really bad because Joe Flacco had one of the best games of his career. He had 470 yards. Yeah, I'm saying this correctly, you guys, and 4 touchdowns. He had 2 picks on the day, but they still was going toe and toe with the Chicago Bears. Chase Brown didn't have a big game. 11 carries, 37 receptions. T. Higgins did. 121 yards, 7 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. And it was a heartbreaker loss for Cincy. They thought they had the game. Jamar Chase was showing class. Usually people look at him and feel like he's arrogant, but he just kept his mouth shut. He like, y'all not gonna put me into this. Y'all not gonna have me on no clickbait or anything. I'm keeping my mouth shut. I'm not letting the media get me in any trouble. On the other end, Chase Brown was like, man, we closed out the game. Y'all need to do your job on defense. And that was kind of ugly. And that was one of the things going around because you were seeing when they were interviewing those guys after that heartbreaking loss. Usually after an emotional loss, man, you would say some things that you might not mean to say. Or even if you felt that way, you'd keep your mouth shut just out of respect. Everybody pointed at how bad that defense played. But 47-42, like I said, it wasn't that much defense, period. But that was a hell of a game. 47-42, Chicago with the walk-off victory. Another good game, which I don't think this was an upset, was the game with the Indianapolis Colts. I thought the Colts was going to go in and beat Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh said not today. That defense woke up, got 5 turnovers on Daniel Jones and rattled him in this game. The first time I seen him off his game this whole season. He had 342 yards, a touchdown, but he had 3 interceptions. Aaron Rodgers just did what he can do. You know, he didn't try to do too much. He did enough to win. And that's what the Steelers need. You know, they don't need no flashy quarterback, just somebody who can get the job done. He had 203 yards and he had a score. Jaden Warren had 31 yards on 16 carries and 2 touchdowns as well. Jonathan Taylor, the X factor, they got him out of the game too. He had 14 carries for 45 yards. Michael Pittman still looked sharp, 115 yards on 9 receptions. But this was a good contest too between two good teams, two worthy teams. I feel like the Indianapolis Colts will learn from this, but still, the Steelers showed that their defense is still alive and well in this game because 5 turnovers on that game. 27-20. That was some good NFL football on Sunday, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Giants and 49ers game wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be as well. It was a really good contested game. I like the fact that Jackson Dart's playing really well. He had 191 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mac Jones, man, damn, it's looking like, man, maybe they should have kept him. And when they was, well, they should have drafted him with San Francisco in the first place. I know people looking at me like, well, damn, Brock Purdy's there. Yes, he is. But I feel like would Mac Jones be a little bit further along if they drafted him there? With a guy like Kyle Shanahan, I just feel like the development was an issue because when he had, Josh McDaniels, he played well, exceptionally well, went to the Pro Bowl that first season. Then when he lost him, it was growing pains. Why would you have a pencil be an offensive coordinator? Moving on. He had 235 yards and 2 scores in that game. Chris McCaffrey been all but Chris McCaffrey this year, praying that this guy can stay healthy. He had 106 yards on 28 carries and a score. 67 yards on 5 receptions and a touchdown as well. So he's been the handyman over there with San Francisco. And like I said, if he can stay healthy, they're going to win as many games as they possibly could. Surprises that they're playing this well, too, with all the acquisitions are gone. You got people who's not there on defense. Some of the people are not on offense, and they still keep clicking. Jackson Dart actually had 56 yards on the ground, too, and a touchdown. Really good game, but I have to give credit where credit is due for San Francisco. Just being a team and an organization that believe in their players and their player development. And that final score was 34-24, San Francisco 49ers. And actually a pretty good game. This was a crazy game, too, man. When I say, damn, any given Sunday, Denver Broncos and the Texans. I thought that this game was going to be easily won by the Denver Broncos. The advantage they had is unfortunately, I feel like that was, I don't know if it was a dirty play, but I feel like the guy should have held up on defense. When you had CJ Stroud going for that slide and that guy nailed CJ, he hit him and it was like a collision where he bounced off the ground and, almost like a double bounce off the ground because when a quarterback sliding, you cannot go for the head. But I understand you trying to go for the body, but the momentum caused that. That took him out the game. And then when I seen that too, that they had Davis Mills, I said, he's not bad, but he's not CJ Stroud. He kept them in the game, I could at least say. Bo Nix hasn't looked good, in the last few games. He had 173 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day, but he didn't really look sharp at all. But it was a pretty good contest. The defenses showed up in this one too. The Texans defense is definitely starting to improve and play much better. That final score was 18-15, a really funky score. But I know Denver Broncos said we'd rather take that win right now. Right now, they're a game above the Los Angeles Chargers. And the crazy part about it, even though it's still early on the season, the Kansas City Chiefs are in third place in that division. That's something you never really think you would hear. This is another crazy game. An example when I was saying any given Sunday. You had the Green Bay Packers and the Carolina Panthers. Yes, the Carolina Panthers came in to play Green Bay in Lambeau Field. And it wasn't like Bryce Young just tore it up in this game. He had 102 yards and a pick. But this guy, Rico Dowd, man, you got to start looking at him and respecting what he do for the game. Truba Hubbard might have to find himself on another team. I wouldn't be surprised if in the trade deadline today that he's out of there in Carolina. This kid, Rico Dowdle, had 130 yards on 25 carries and 2 touchdowns. He basically put the team on his back. And when you have a good player like that, that's all you need. Because Tatiar McMillan didn't do as much. He had 46 yards on 4 receptions. And then you had Josh Jacobs, who had 87 yards on 17 carries and a score. But at the end of the day, the any given Sunday definitely had its effect on this one too. That final score it was tied at first. You had enough from Bryce Young to go down and take them down, and in the clutch moments of the game to kick the field goal and win. And this was a funky game too, and the score. You got 5-4 Carolina Panthers won this game now against the 5-2-1 Green Bay Packers. I was a little upset that we lost that game too. Not disappointed, but just a little upset because we couldn't catch up, man. I think if we could have won that, we could have got some ground on these guys. But still, this season's not over. It's still a long season. But that final score was 16-13, and the Carolina Panthers win. Damn, they're a game above 500. I don't know how long that's going to be, but you had a game where they got the Green Bay Packers, that explosive offense. Even though I feel like Jordan Love didn't play well, and he could have definitely did better in this game. He had 273 yards and he had a pick, but he just looked bad the whole game, like he wasn't even there. But you get those games out of him every now and then. So I want to see how he played because everybody gave them praises and said, "Oh man, they're going to run away with the division," and not so fast. This division is a little closer now than everybody thought that it was going to be. Right now, it's a little cluttered too. You got the 5-3 Bears, you got the 5-3 Lions, you got the 5-2-1 you know, Green Bay Packers and the 4-4 Minnesota Vikings. So I want to definitely see how this play out. I definitely didn't think we was going to run away with the division like we did last year, and it still wasn't a runaway because Minnesota Vikings was right there, and they was only a game behind us. But I really want to see how this going to play going into the rest of the season, the second half of the season, if you may add. I want to go on to this really good game right here that I thought was going to be the worst game, man. That's why now I'm not going to say, oh, this is going to be a bad game or, just count a game out before it's even played. Because the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Las Vegas Raiders was possibly one of the best games on this weekend on Sunday. Trevor Lawrence had 220 yards and a pick on the day. Geno Smith, man, he had 284 yards, four touchdowns, and a pick. But it was a really good game because it was a back and forth contest. At one point, I felt like the Raiders did enough to win. But when Jacksonville went down, they scored the last score. I can't say they scored the last score because the Raiders went down and they could have possibly tied the game. But they said, we're not going for the tie and go in overtime. We want to walk this game off. We want to win now. And that's why I had to give them respect because of the grit. That's a Pete Carroll move right there to say, man, we're not trying to go for overtime. We're trying to go for the walk-off win. They were at home. They felt like they had the momentum. They just came up short. It was a tip at the line and 30-29 victory, but it was still a heck of a game. The Saints and Rams, I don't really want to get too much in detail into this one. It was a blowout. Matthew Stafford had 281 yards and four touchdowns. Tyler Shaw didn't look too bad. He looked pretty good at the beginning, 176 yards and a touchdown, but it still wasn't enough to beat the Los Angeles Rams. That final score was Matthew Stafford's shine. He had 30, it was 34-10, and you got a 6-2 team who's fighting to be one of the best teams in the division right now. You got a lot of good 6-2 teams right now in the NFC right now, or 7-2. But it's been some really good competition right now. It's going to be really close, and I want to see how things boil down in the playoffs coming up. When it gets colder, like in the January, of the year. I can't wait to see what happened in those playoff cold weather games as well. This was I think the best game by far of the weekend. You're always gonna have the best when you see Patrick Mahomes and when you see them play the Buffalo Bills. They were in Buffalo in this game, so I thought it was gonna be a pretty good contest as well. Patrick Mahomes had 250 yards through the air and a touchdown, and you had Josh Allen who had 273 yards in the score. They let on James Cook, man. He had 27 carries, 114 yards. Kareem Hunt had 49 yards on 11 carries and a touchdown as well. Dalton Kincaid had 101 yards off six receptions and a touchdown. The point of this game right here that I'm going to just explain, Joey Bosa had a really good game. He had a couple of sacks in this game. And they just basically kept the pressure on Patrick Mahomes, man. They went off the edges, they came up the middle, and he didn't really have enough time to, do a lot of his magic. He did some of his magic with some open plays or when he scrambled and got open and threw the ball to Travis Kelsey. He did one on the goal line with Hollywood Brown. He did a couple of spectacular plays in this game, and you expect that from him. But it still wasn't enough to hold off the Bills because they were coming after him. They were hitting him hard, man. As much as they protect quarterbacks, I was surprised and some of those wasn't called, roughing the passer or unnecessary roughness. They let them play in that game, of which I was surprised because the NFL nowadays, man, it be some suspect calls. We had some suspect calls like the roughing the passer in the Lions game, but that wasn't the reason they lost. I just still feel like the refereeing still need to be better. The refs are really bad this year. They need to be fined or fired or held accountable. We're not trying to tell people how to do their jobs, but still, man, they need to know how to do their jobs. That final score was 28-21. Hell of a game. I enjoyed it. But surprising enough, too, the Kansas City Chiefs, if you told me they were going to be 5-4 in the season right now, I definitely would be surprised if they can come back and win that division right now. If anything, they might make the wild card round. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season pan out. I know they play good once the weather gets cold, but I want to see how long the Denver Broncos can hold, or either the Los Angeles Chargers can hold them off and keep them in third place in that division. I want to move on to, and I want to talk about this game because this game was like really crazy to me. Sam Darnold, man. I really would have been afraid if Minnesota kept this guy, man. He's playing some of the best ball right now. Him, and the crazy part is not only him, but Daniel Jones. If they would have kept those two guys, man, where would Minnesota be right now? They'll definitely be way above 500. Sam Darnold had 330 yards. At one point, he had a perfect quarterback rating going into the half. He had 21 to 24 passing, 4 touchdowns, and he had a pick. On the other hand, Jaden Daniels had 153 yards, 16 of 22 in the pick. And like I said, he had that really crucial injury. It was rough to see him break and dislocate that elbow. But other than that, besides really Sam Darnold going off like that, nobody else really did as much, besides the wide receiver play. Jackson Smith and Jigba is definitely showing now why they let those guys walk like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. He had 8 receptions, 129 yards, and they looked really sharp on the day. For the most part, a lot of those touchdowns that Sam Darnold got was like right there by the goal. They was right there in the red zone whenever he got those passes. But he looked sharp, and you got to give credit where credit is due. The defense played well as well, and it's crazy too because it wasn't really much going on with Washington. They had 14 points, but I feel bad because when you're in a blowout victory like that, I just think that they should have pulled out Jaden Daniels a little earlier than that. And I feel like if they would have did that, that would have saved him from being hurt like he was. So I don't know, and I'm not pointing the finger, but I feel like maybe in a blowout victory like that, or when you're getting blown out like that, take out the guy who has the keys to your franchise. I think that that would have been more smart, but I'm not a coach, or I'm not a GM or any of the above, so I can only just voice my opinion. The Monday night game started to get a little questions too, because what you're looking at right now is what are they going to do as far as the quarterback play? Because when you look at the quarterback play, I feel like for one, it's been really good quarterback play right now on Jacoby Brissett part. I mean, he can only do so much. But still, what I'm looking at is the way he's been playing and how he's been handling the team and how the team's been reacting to him being a quarterback right now. That's very important in this whole situation. Jacoby Brissett had 261 yards. He rushed for a touchdown and he scored 2 passing touchdowns on the day. But the X factor is Marvin Harrison Jr., how sharp and how good he's been playing lately. He had 7 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown. And that little route he ran in the end zone, he did Darren Bland wrong. That guy was rolling over the ground like a tumbleweed, and he was 4 or 5 yards ahead of him on that score. And I think CD Lamb seen it on the jumbotron, and he was shook. Most times, you're not supposed to show emotions like that over one of your players getting cooked. But I mean, game recognized game, and CD Lamb gave up credit where credit is due. I thought that was a pretty awesome moment in the game as well. Dak Prescott had 250 yards and a touchdown. I just didn't really feel like him and the receivers were back to the point where they were on the same page. I feel like him and CD was on the same page, and sometimes they wasn't. And the same thing with George Pickens. George Pickens had a vital play too, where he made a boneheaded move that's starting to show his ugly head again. They got a first down, and he put the ball in the defender's face. That was a 15-yard penalty. Changed the momentum of this game because the Cowboys possibly could have at least made the game a little bit more interesting. But then it was a lot of turnovers too. The Cardinals got some really good strip fumbles, and they just really played well. They played better than what I thought they would. And old man Calais Campbell had 2 sacks on the game too, man. That guy was looking really good. He had that foul of youth, but it was just really good execution from them. And I feel like they execute better right now with Jacoby Brissett versus what they were doing with Kyler Murray. So I want to see where that goes because they keep bringing it up, man, and they don't have to. I mean, we know he's a starting quarterback, but when y'all saying, well, yeah, it's still his job and stuff, that started to put doubt in my head saying, is it really his job still? Let's get on, you guys. I want to move on and I want to talk about the predictions. I want to get off into that. And let's start off with the college predictions, you guys. In week 11, USC versus Northwestern, I'm going to take USC, number 20 USC, and I'm going to take the 14.5 points. Tulane and Memphis, they got Memphis for 5.5. I'm going to go under that. I think it's going to be a little closer. Don't disrespect Tulane. They're 6-2. I think they got a lot more to prove. And Memphis sometimes has been shaky. So I'm going to go a little under on that one. I'll still take Memphis at home. Indiana and Penn State, they got Indiana 15.5. I'm going to take number 2 Indiana, and I'm going to go with the 15.5. You got number 5 Georgia versus Mississippi State. I'm gonna go under the 7.5. I'll take Georgia. You got number 8 BYU versus number 9 Texas Tech. One of the games I think is going to be one of the better games. I'm surprised it's on so early. They need to do a better job of flexing in college too, as well. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with the upset. I'm gonna go with BYU on the road. They got Texas Tech winning by 9.5. I'll take BYU in this one. Number 1, Ohio State versus Purdue. Come on now. Not only am I taking Ohio State, I'm taking the 29.5 on this one. The Citadel versus number 7, Ole Miss. I'm going to go with Ole Miss. And I'm going to go over a 14.5 point. Number 3, Texas A&M versus Mizzou. I'm going to go with Texas A&M. I'll take the 6.5 at home. Number 6, Oregon versus Iowa. Iowa's playing good ball, man. They're 6-2. Don't sleep on Iowa, but I'm gonna still go at Oregon, and I'm gonna take the 5.5 points. Syracuse versus number 18 Miami. I'm gonna go with Miami, but I'm gonna go under the 28.5 because Miami sometimes be having hiccups. And yeah, even though Syracuse is 3-6, I still think they're gonna make it a little closer than 28.5. Auburn versus Vandy. I'm gonna go with Vandy at home, and I'm gonna take the points with the 6.5. Number 24, Washington versus Wisconsin. I'm going to take Washington in under the 11.5. Wake Forest versus number 12, Virginia. I'm going to go with Virginia on at home, 6.5 points favor. California versus Louisville. I'll take Louisville, but I'm going to go under the 19.5. This is going to be a good one, too. Even though LSU is 5-3, this is their championship game right now. LSU versus number 4, Alabama. I'll take Alabama in the 9.5 points. And Navy versus Notre Dame. I'm going to take Notre Dame, but I'm going to go a little under that 26.5. I'm going to say 23. Let's get off to the NFL right now. Week 10. Oh, yeah. You got the Raiders and the Broncos. I'm going to take the Broncos in the 8.5. Patriots and the Buccaneers. This is a game the Patriots possibly can lose. I'm going to go with the Bucs at home. And I'm going to go with that 2.5 point favor. You have the Detroit Lions in the bounce back game against the Commanders, like I told you. Luke McCaffrey's out for the season. Marcus Lattimore's out for the season. And you don't have Jaden Daniels. I'll take the Lions. I'm not trusting the 8.5 points right now, but I know that they have a lot to prove. Hell, you know what? Better yet, I'll take the 8.5. Show me that you were better than what you've played on Sunday. You have the Falcons versus the Colts. I'm gonna go with the Colts at home, and I'll take the 5.5 points. This one's gonna be a really bad game, or this one's gonna be probably one of the better games. Cleveland Browns versus the New York Jets. I'm gonna go with the Jets at home and 2.5. Jaguars versus the Texans. It depends if CJ Stroud play. If Stroud play, I'm gonna take them more than 1.5 points. But if he don't play, I'll take the 1.5 points. But I'm gonna give it to Jaguars. Bills versus Dolphins. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go with Buffalo, and I'm gonna get them to 9.5 because the Dolphins, man, I'd be surprised if they don't fire Mike McDaniel soon. I'm surprised they didn't have like a clearance sale on some of their players. I know Mekhi Fitzpatrick's gonna be out there, but yeah, I just don't really see a lot of hope in that team this season. New York Giants versus the Chicago Bears. I'm gonna take the Chicago Bears at home, and I'm gonna take the 3.5 points. The Ravens versus the Vikings. I'm gonna go with Baltimore on the road with the 4.5. You got a healthy Lamar Jackson and the Derrick Henry, and their defense has been playing lights out. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Ravens on this one. The New York Saints and the Carolina Panthers. I'm gonna take the Carolina Panthers at home with 5.5. Watch they disappoint me. The Cardinals versus the Seahawks. Arizona Cardinals has been playing well, but the Seattle Seahawks been playing very good. I'm gonna give it to the Seahawks in the 6.5 and the 12 man at home. Los Angeles Rams versus the 49ers. I'm gonna go 3.5 and I'm gonna take the Rams. Steelers and Chargers. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go with the Chargers at home with the 3.5. Then you have the Monday Night Football game. This is gonna be a good one, you guys. You had the Philadelphia Eagles against the Green Bay Packers at home once again. They have Green Bay by 2.5. I can't do it though, man. I'm gonna have to go with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm gonna go with the 2.5 point favor, and I'm gonna give it to the Eagles. I would like to say thank you all for chiming in and always showing love to us, man. We're getting towards the holiday season. I just want people to spread love and be more kind to one another. It's been a really good year. I've been having my ups and downs, and like everybody else, but I just want to say thank you all for listening, chiming in, showing love to our promos. I even get ideas for some of my good close friends about some promos. I never eject anything, man. Whatever you have to say or any questions, man, like I say, man, hit them comments, hit us up on our social medias as well. That being said, let me get over and scroll over to the text. You can reach me at Hoovy, WHOOVI on Instagram. I usually put up a lot of stuff as far as our promos and some of our work that we do throughout the network. And then you have the Sports Guru to You, and that's my Facebook page where I put the breaking news, and I'm gonna stay hot on that right now. I haven't really been looking too much on my phone as of yet, but I know it's gonna be some news as far as the trade deadline while it's still early. Don't forget, you guys, that in at 4 p.m. And of course, I like to say thank you for Instagram for always showing me love and support, and TikTok as well. And on my TikTok page is Hugh.Lee6. I would like to say thank you to all my family, friends, and loved ones, and everybody who chime in, to the old and to the new subscribers. Thank you for making this a reality for me. I just want to continue to stay consistent and show you guys the pride, the love, and the blood, sweat, and tears that me and my co-host E-Buck put into all this. We like to say thank you all. Have a blessed day, and I'll be talking to you soon. Once again, the Guru, I'm checking out. This is the Guru Perspective. Thank you, and have a blessed day.